in the late 1980s when Operations Greylord and Gambat implicated the very integrity of the Cook County Circuit Court, from traffic tickets all the way up to murder raps. Cook County faced one of our largest reform questions in history. More than 100 indictments said that we could not trust our judiciary. A very small group of legislators working across racial and political and community boundaries fashioned a solution. The odds that they faced were very long. They were up against all of the usual suspects in the entrenched and vested and established interests of the status quo. In fact, many of those people said that no reform was necessary. Our speaker today was one of those legislators. The judicial subcircuits that we have known ever since are eloquent testimony to the success of that nonpartisan reform after an unprecedented wave of official corruption. Roger Keats, for his leading role in that reform, was honored just last year during Black History Month by the Illinois Judicial Council, a group of the leading African-American jurists and attorneys in the state of Illinois. He was honored by Operation Push, cited for his leadership by Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Willie Barrow. State Senator Earlene Collins called Roger, quote, the honorary co-chairman of the Black Caucus. Roger's record of service to the country and to the community dates to 1972, when he became a commissioned officer in the United States Army. It wasn't long after Roger went to Springfield, joined the state Senate, before he tangled with Jane Byrne. Milton Pekarsky had bankrupted the RTA. Cuts threatened CTA service, and the riders, as we've seen recently, were lost in that shuffle. Once again, a small group, nonpartisan, across racial and community borders, worked together to find a better way. But it took until 1983 and Mayor Harold Washington to adopt the revisions to the RTA that Roger worked out with Carol Mosley Braun. Roger left the state Senate in 1992, but he came roaring back just last month, winning 70% in the Republican primary to reform Cook County. I think that result shows Roger still knows how to put together a coalition, and I think we're about to hear from Roger how he plans to do it across every neighborhood in Cook County. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm City Club welcome for the Republican candidate to reform Cook County, Roger Keats.
Thank you. After all those nice comments, we've hit the high point. I'm just going to sit down and shut up. But I thank all of you for being here. I thank Jay, I thank the City Club for this invitation to talk with you. I consider these talks sort of the start of the general election for Alderman Preckwinkle and myself. And I really do hate to rain on the Alderman's victory lap, but this is 2010, and it has already shown it will be a different year. Today, I'm in far better shape than Scott Brown ever was in Massachusetts. So it is something to keep in mind that we actually have a pretty good year and things are rolling our direction. Remember, this summer and fall, something else will help. The Insider's pinup boy, Governor Rod Blagojevich, will be holding court down the street in front of a jury of his peers. And if you remember how mad he is at a few of his friends, this is going to be interesting testimony. After we hear from his dear friend, Tony Rezko, any candidate considered Tony's favorite Fourth Ward alderman will look quite a bit different then than they look today. You know what? In these difficult times, people of Cook County really do face a crisis. We've been facing it for a little while now. And a dysfunctional 19th century relic, Cook County's government, is a big part of that problem. Virtually no one understands what we do, and frankly, before Todd Strozier was elected, nobody really cared anyway. That is one great thing Todd Strozier has done. He has made people aware we do have a county government. There's been very little accountability in this bastion of one-party rule. It really has served as a benefit to make multimillionaires of people like Michael Madigan and other insiders at the taxpayers' expense, while they've shifted billions of dollars of assessed valuation off the property tax burden from the commercial property to the residential property taxpayers. And they've done it with the help of their buddy Joe Barrios. And this is going to be a real big issue because right now at County Hall or County Building, they're fighting about when they should send out the property tax notices. Because they are well aware within some areas of the city of Chicago, there should be some people very upset when they receive those property tax assessments. I can think of one who I know who lives in Wilmette who's not happy with his assessments. But anyway, there's a big argument about that, and there's a reason. But we'll come back to that later. Remember, Cook County used to be the greatest manufacturing county in America. Today, manufacturing in Cook County is on life support. Private sector jobs have flooded out of here. Property taxes, sales taxes, fees have skyrocketed. Property values have declined. And yet the government workforce just keeps growing, getting paid more, and having higher pensions. We have sent so many of our elected officials to jail, we're almost immune to the news stories about the latest alderman or county official getting his just desserts. But you know, there are solutions. You know, I could stand up here all day and complain, but that doesn't do us any good. You need to know, can somebody do something about it? And on Monday, December 6th of 2010, when my hand leaves the Bible, after taking the oath of office, I'm going to change that. And here are 5 of the things that I will do just on day 1. Number 1, the budget I introduced for 2011 will be smaller than the budget we had in 2010. Number 2, I will terminate about 150 of Todd Strozier's friends and relatives, might even be more. And I'm going to replace them with 25 assistant inspector generals, and I'm going to turn them loose with no limits. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Everything and anything is going to be open to them. Number 3, I'm going to ask everybody in the media, give me your FOIA request. I'm going to open every file, every email, every contract. And in part to remind them, when you look at how many people saw University of Illinois, Chicago, and the Better Government Association report on corruption in Cook County? It's in my briefcase, and if anyone had a question about it. I've read every word of it, and I agree with them. Our corruption tax is the highest in the nation, and I intend to shed some light on the corrupt insiders who've done this. I'm going to have Andy Shaw and his Better Government Association in the county building so often, people are going to think those guys work there. Think of how many years it's been since we've had anyone really turn loose on what's been going on in that county building. Number 4, I'm going to ask the top folks at 2 of the world's greatest business schools. I better start with Northwestern and Kellogg or I'm in trouble. And my dad's alma mater, the University of Chicago, located right here in Cook County. And I'm going to ask some of the other fine business schools in the county to join them. We're going to have a private sector jobs initiative. I'm going to ask the major leaders of Chicago's private sector, financial sector, venture capital sectors. I'm going to carefully include leaders also from the south and west side. I want to make sure we get a real private sector jobs summit. We need to hear what the real producers of jobs, dreams, wealth, and private sector growth have to say. Right now, too often when people talk about what are we going to do, they ask the government. The government is not the solution. The government is the problem in places like this. I want the private sector people to tell us what we need to do. We have the brains and talent right here to right the ship if the governments will quit scuttling it. I'll match our civic-minded business leaders with anywhere in America. But when was the last time anyone in Cook County took advantage of an asset of this value that's literally sitting here? We will take advantage. The 5th thing I'm going to do on day 1, I'm going to replace numerous department directors. I don't want to say all of them because I want some of them to make sure they do a good job this year. If they know they're gone, that might be a bad year. But I'm going to replace a lot of them. Many are empire builders, and frankly, they're a serious impediment to progress. My appointees will be people who believe in a limited and efficient government. We're going to have a government that helps entrepreneurs and job producers to expand opportunities for our citizens and our kids and produces tax revenues to fund services for the less fortunate. Remember, our problem isn't just our high taxes. We're also overregulated and frankly been shaken down by the corrupt insiders. Remember, as I said, our corruption tax is the highest in the country. You talk to so many business leaders who, when people say to them, why don't you come to Chicago? Look at all the pluses. And they go, yeah, right, pack of crooks. That's our image. Fair or not, that's our image. And remember, all the things I've just talked about, I can do all of this day one on my own. I don't need a vote. These are the existing powers of the president of the Cook County Board. Remember, that's only day one. I got a few days left after that. Day two, we start to drain the swamp and drag Cook County in the 21st century. Of course, I'll do everything I can to remove the rest of the sales tax increase. That will be the start of a new era of accountability at County Board. Because for years, my friends on the County Board, and as Tony Pareka and others on the board can tell you, a lot of the commissioners can say, oh, I support this reform idea. You can say that because you knew the president was never going to bring it to a vote, so you can say anything you want to. That ends when my hand leaves the Bible. A hero of mine, Everett McKinley Dirksen, used to say, I see the light when I feel the heat. It's time to warm things up at Cook County government. And I pledge here today, in front of the City Club, as President Cook County Board, I'm going to do everything I can to lower that sales tax, and to lower the other taxes, and to lower the regulatory burden, and to lower the corruption burden. But I can't do it alone. In these cases, I'm going to need a majority of the commissioners. Well, I got one of them sitting here, so I know I got one vote. But I need you to tell the commissioners to back the reform movement and to cut taxes. Now, remember former Reform Commissioner Mike Quigley did a series of studies on how to restructure and streamline Cook County government? Again, I've got a copy of his report with me today. I intend to do everything I can to implement that report. It's an excellent roadmap. It's not a radical agenda. It's pretty much common sense ideas. But I need a majority of the elected commissioners to support it. Now, majority have said they support this report. I'm going to give them a chance to prove they really meant it. Also, to assist our efforts, I'm going to convene an advisory panel of private business, essentially efficiency experts and consultants and academics to give us more suggestions how to implement Mike Quigley's reform platform. I'm going to call it the Honest Government Commission, for lack of a better term. These folks will all be volunteers. No taxpayers' funds are going to be used. And remember, one of the problems is we've got so many departments, so many agencies, so many elected officials. One of our problems is like property tax. We have 4 different agencies and elected officials who deal with property taxes alone, 4 different ones. No wonder the system's such a mess. I'm also going to have a resolution drafted to make the independent Cook County Health and Hospital System Board permanent. The volunteers on the board, led by a wonderful civic-minded gentleman named Warren Batts, and his director, Bill Foley, thank goodness they're here, have done an excellent job and given us a realistic plan to work from. Remember, now this is frightening in Cook County. They've found a way to expand services for less money. You guys are heretics. I don't know if this is acceptable. But you think about it. If your goal is to run a hospital system, not simply to hire precinct captains, it's amazing what you can do. And just remember, so far I haven't added one single penny to the budget. Now I ask you, does this sound like the program we're going to get from a longtime insider, get along to go along alderman, who took $187,500 in campaign contributions just during the last primary from Cook County's largest union, SEIU Acorn? I do not think so. How about the program of a 20-year committeeman, a Tony Revsco pal, who was sued for using taxpayer dollars to fund her political ward organization? I do not think this will be her agenda. You don't really think we'll get this kind of reform from an insider alderman, do you? This is real reform from a real independent. There is a real difference. Now you see why the Chicago Tribune endorsing me said, some county Democrats privately say they fear that Keats, a businessman who has the understanding of budgeting and frankly the outside self-confidence, I think that's ego, but anyway, has that to shake the business as usual at county government. The Chicago Sun-Times, in endorsing me, said, Keats comes with the background to make his reform proposals work. Although a North Shore resident, he has kept up old ties with Chicago's south and west sides. I know what to do. I know how to do it. And like the retired Army Lieutenant Colonel I am, I'm committed to the military credo, leave no one behind. Areas like the South Side, Lawndale, Garfield Park, and Pilsen, every neighborhood in the city, every town in the suburbs, is part of this agenda. Most voters don't realize that 75% of what needs to be done to clean up Cook County cesspool can be done with the existing executive powers of the president, without any votes by the Board of Commissioners. As I said, it really makes a difference if Roger Keats is the next president of the Cook County Board. Let me put this campaign in perspective, what we're really up against. It'll be an independent reformer taking on the insider profiteers who've run Illinois and Cook County into the ground, a reformer taking on the insiders who run that system, according to the Tribune, has produced over 1,000 criminal convictions. 1,000 criminal convictions. Think about that. A reformer taking on the top insider, the epicenter of the pay-to-play culture of corruption in Illinois, Michael Madigan, who during his tenure has given us a $13 billion systemic budget deficit, second largest in the country, and the largest unfunded pension liabilities in the entire nation. Great job, Mike. According to the New York Times and the Chicago News Cooperative, in the 2-year period between 2006 and 2008, Michael Madigan shifted the taxes of $490 million of assessed evaluation from commercial property to residential taxpayers. By the way, did I mention the story showed he was paid at least $25 million in those 2 years to bilk his own voters? $25 million in 2 years. You know, if he ripped off a couple grand in Cook County, we'd say, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. $25 million in 2 years? And did it all with the help of his pal, Mr. Pay-to-Play Jr., Joe Berrios, their party's Cook County chairman. If you read the UIC BGA report on Cook County corruption, one of the things that got so many people sent to jail before was taking bribes to fix property tax assessments. The difference then was they were called bribes, and you went to jail. Now, with the help of Joe Berrios, Mike Madigan calls them legal fees, and they become a tax-deductible expense. You know, poor Ike Carruthers, the alderman who's on his way to jail, poor Ike. If he'd just known to list those bribes on his gross income as legal fees, it would have been okay. I'm serious. You got to read the UIC BGA report. Or, I'm sorry, Andy Shaw had to leave, but Andy was here earlier. Or ask Andy about it. I'm dead serious. That's exactly what's in the report. But of course, Speaker Madigan's actions are okay, because he pays taxes on his legal fees. Against this backdrop, let's pause to note that my opponent, the insider alderman, nominated Mr. Pay-to-Play Jr., Joe Berrios, for another term as Cook County chairman. A reformer as a key supporter for Mr. Pay-to-Play Jr. The media blasted Governor Quinn for having ties to Joe Berrios, but at least the governor didn't nominate Mr. Pay-to-Play Jr. to be the county chairman. I wish there were a little more coverage on some of those ties. But oh well, I guess if you use a very loose definition of independent reformer, real loose definition, nah, even then, being allied with Joe Berrios and Mike Madigan is not an independent reformer. The primary, I campaigned all over Cook County, from Palatine to Devon Avenue to Tinley Park, from Trinity United Church of Christ. Yes, I know Jeremiah Wright, and he's a friend of mine, and I'm not embarrassed to say that, although there are a few things we disagree on. To the League of, more than a few. But anyway, hey, he's an old Navy man. I'm a retired Army colonel. We get along fine, But anyway, also the League of Women Voters, BGA debate. This is a great county. This is the second largest county in America. We're bigger than states like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Maryland. If we were a country, not a county, we're the 21st biggest gross domestic product in the entire world. Think of the opportunities our citizens and our families would have if we could just get this government that's so corrupt and so dysfunctional out of the way and get them to quit impeding our progress. In the general election, I'm going to again be in every neighborhood, white, black, Asian, Latino, rich, poor, middle class, and I'm listening to what people have to say, and it's really interesting. They really don't care about parties. They really don't. They don't care about ideologies at all. They've got no time for all the partisan sniping you see going on all the time, but they do care about results. They really do care about that. And they care about the government remembering it works for them. They care about people in government, whatever their party, working up with other people, whatever their party, for the benefits of the taxpayers and not just the Crook County insiders. I've done just that. I truly have been a bipartisan coalition builder. As mentioned, we reformed the RTA with Harold Washington with a bipartisan multiracial coalition. It worked for 20 years till Rod Blagojevich got in and made a mess. But for 20 years, what Harold and I worked out worked just fine, and the whole system worked. I was also made sure that black contractors, not just the insiders, got a fair shot at the business at McCormick Place. And probably what I consider the honor of a lifetime, holding together the bipartisan and multiracial coalition that cleaned up after Operation Greylord and those 100-some indictments and convictions. Alderman Preckwinkle last week, standing at the same podium, praised that as a breakthrough for Cook County, our sub-circuit legislation. I appreciate that. But maybe she and every voter should remember that all of her friends who are supporting her right now, like Mike Madigan and Joe Barrios, fought us every step of the way. In fact, her insider friends and supporters and their political leadership fought us on every one of those battles and reforms we talked about. You should have seen Mike Madigan tenaciously defending the corrupt political system that had given us Operation Greylord. I got to give him credit. I couldn't have come up with any way to defend those guys. But he was perfectly willing to do it, in public, on the floor of the House, beyond my comprehension. That's when Erlene Collins, then chairman of the Black Caucus and now a member of the county board, nicknamed me the honorary co-chairman of the Black Caucus and even invited me to the Black Caucus dinner. That was a lot of fun. And I'm sitting at the head table, and as my dear pal Howard Brookins said, "You look a little different. What are you doing here?" But wonderful opportunity. But what it says is, you know, Ronald Reagan used to have a sign on his desk that said, "It's amazing what you can get done if you don't care who gets the credit." We didn't care who got the credit, but we sure got things cleaned up. Not one judge has been indicted since then. I've got a little bit of experience working with bipartisan multiracial coalitions. Now, the voters in the middle of a recession know the insiders are still getting their buddies and family members contracts and jobs working for the county, and they're making good money do it, and they know it. They also know the Chicago Inspector General just found a carefully hidden multi-million-dollar stealth payroll in the Chicago City Council full of ghost payrollers, double dippers, and insiders' relatives. Why didn't Alderman Preckwinkle find that and reform it? When I was a senator in Springfield, I discovered a huge bunch of ghost payrollers, same thing, in the legislative commissions. I thought the taxpayers were being cheated, and I went to the legislative leadership of both parties. They were not particularly interested in getting rid of ghost payrollers. It was not a successful meeting. I then made a decision to go around them, and I worked closely with a legendary newsman named Dick Kay to expose the corruption. Dick really did a fantastic job. In fact, Dick won the Peabody Medallion for the top investigative reporter in America for that story. He often referred to me as his deep throat on his Peabody Award. But we got the ghost payrollers fired. That's how a real independent reformer behaves. Just an example, the Forest Preserve District and all the elected county officials, they overlap. Legal departments, admin departments, staff functions. Streamlining, it's easy to do based on function, but it's hard to do based on you've got to work with some of these people who really don't want to be streamlined. Even the county's pension funds are a mess. The Civic Federation has done an excellent report that shows the largest funds underfunded by $3 billion. Yet that doesn't keep the insiders and consultants from pillaging those funds. The various county elected officials who hire and control most of the employees defend their turf and add to it when they can. Over 95% of county employees are unionized, with 21 unions represented at Stroger Hospital in the health system alone. 21 unions at one hospital. I can't even figure out 21 different unions at the hospital. Think about that. To fix this, the president's direct authority over 93% of the budget is the appropriations process, bonding, and contracts, especially labor contracts. A smart, independent, real reformer needs to use that leverage. That's why the president needs to be a real reformer, not someone who just took hundreds of thousands of dollars in insider union contracts in the last primary. I could go on, but I think you're getting the picture.